Our Vladimir Duthiers is there in Las Vegas. So Vlad, Stephen Paddock's girlfriend Mary Lou Downey arrived in Los Angeles from the Philippines Wednesday. What can you tell us about that?
Exactly what you said, Elaine. She spoke through her lawyer, as you pointed out. She said that she always knew Stephen Paddock to be a kind, caring, quiet man. What's really interesting, it's been reported that Stephen Paddock actually wired her $100,000 into her account, and clearly authorities are looking into that. She says that she was actually worried about that because, number one, he asked her to go to the Philippines, and then all of a sudden she receives this wire transfer of $100,000, and she thought that he was perhaps intending to break up with her. But ultimately, she says she knew nothing about these dastardly plans. She said through her lawyer that he never said anything to me or took any action that I was aware of, that I understood in any way to be a warning that something horrible like this was going to happen, Elaine.
Well, Vlad, I know since you've been there, you've talked to a number of survivors of the shooting. Tell us about some of those stories that stand out to you.
You know, Elaine, specifically, I want to talk about Mark and Misty Lacey. These two individuals were attending the concert. They were actually in the VIP area, so they were actually much closer to where the shooting was taking place. In other words, they were closer to the window where the killer had holed himself up. All of a sudden, when the shots rang out, Mark tells me that he thought, like everybody, that they were perhaps fireworks. But when he realized that they were actually gunshots, it was when somebody that was next to him was shot in the head. And he told his wife to lay low, and he started helping and rescuing people that were caught in the line of fire. Ultimately, he rescued some 20 people. His wife told me that she was scared initially, but when she realized what Mark was doing, she wanted to help, and that's what she did. And they were heroes. We stood and talked to them right near the area where they were helping triage some of the survivors. We could still see bloodstains where they had helped to triage those survivors. I told Mark that a lot of people, most of America, thinks that he's a hero. And Mark told me that he was just doing what anybody else in that situation would do, Elaine.
Well, truly acts of heroism. Vlad, we know that Stephen Paddock managed to get 23 weapons into his hotel room. And I'm wondering, are you hearing of any changes being considered to shore up or tighten security in Las Vegas?
So here's the interesting thing about that, Elaine. We've spoken to a number of law enforcement officials. We even spoke to Mr. Las Vegas himself, Wayne Newton. And it's important to point out that the reason that we've been speaking to these individuals is because they all tell us, from Wayne Newton to law enforcement officials, that Las Vegas is one of the safest cities in the world. Remember, when anybody goes into a casino, when anybody walks into a hotel, there are cameras everywhere. They are tracking every single move that you or I might make in one of those casinos. These law enforcement, these police officers were actually standing right in front of the Las Vegas Police Department. They work very closely with security officials at the hotels and at the casinos. They have a very tight relationship. A lot of the security officials at the hotels and casinos are actually former Las Vegas Police Department police officers or police officers from other parts of the country. So there's a tight bond that exists between police officers that are still working the job and those that have retired or have decided to work in the private sector. And so that's one of the reasons law enforcement officials say that they were able to ascertain very quickly where the killer was holed up and to work with security in the Mandalay Bay Hotel to get up to the 32nd floor. Ultimately, when they approached the room, as you know, the killer killed himself. But that quick action, that quick response that happened from law enforcement official would not have worked without that very tight bond that exists between the security officials and police officers. And so we expect that that will continue. There are some concerns, Elaine. Obviously, this is a game changer. As one retired police lieutenant told me, this killing, this massacre of those 58 individuals is a game changer in the way that security will be conducted across the entire country. In other words, think about this, Elaine. When we go to the Macy's Day Parade, we are surrounded by skyscrapers there on Fifth Avenue in New York City, or the ball drop in Times Square during the New Year's Eve celebrations, Mardi Gras. These are all celebrations. These are all events that take place on streets surrounded by large buildings where at any point in time there could be a sniper that decides to do exactly what this individual did. And so you can be sure that law enforcement and federal law enforcement agencies across the country are going to be looking at ways to prevent that from happening. But this is a representation of a game change in law enforcement practices going forward, Elaine.
Yeah, no doubt officials, not just in the United States, but all over the world, are reviewing their own security protocols in the wake of this. Vladimir Duthiers, Vlad, thanks so much.